We've all been there, right? That overwhelming, irresistible urge to just nap right after a big meal. It's the dreaded food coma. But what is actually going on inside our bodies? Well, in this explainer, we're going to break down the fascinating science behind it.
You know that feeling. You've just wrapped up lunch, maybe a huge bowl of pasta or a sandwich on some nice white bread, and then bam! Suddenly your energy just tanks. Your eyelids feel like they weigh 100 pounds, and trying to focus on anything? Forget about it. This isn't just in your head, I promise. It's a very real biological response.
The official scientific term is postprandial somnolence. I know, it sounds super fancy, but postprandial just means after a meal, and somnolence means drowsiness. So literally, after a meal sleepiness. Giving it a name is important because it helps us see this isn't some personal failing, but a real physiological process. And to get what's happening, we need to start with how our body actually measures the food we eat.
Okay, so to really understand the food coma, we need a tool. We need a way to measure how our body reacts to different kinds of foods. And the key tool for this job is the glycemic index.
The glycemic index, or GI for short, is basically a ranking system for foods on a scale from 0 to 100. It tells you how quickly a food that contains carbs is going to raise your blood sugar after you eat it. The benchmark here is pure glucose, which gets a perfect score of 100. So, really simply, the higher the GI number, the faster that food is going to spike your blood sugar.
And looking at a chart like this makes it all so much clearer. Down on the low end with a GI of 55 or less, you've got your slow and steady champs like lentils and most veggies. These cause a very gentle, slow rise in blood sugar. In the middle, you find things like bananas and basmati rice. And then, all the way up on the high end, we're talking 70 or more, you find the usual suspects: white bread, cornflakes, peeled potatoes. These are the foods your body just tears through in no time.
And wow, you can really see the difference here. After you eat some high GI white bread, your blood sugar just shoots up. It's a huge, rapid spike. But with something low GI, like lentils, the response is so much lower, so much more gradual. And that big initial spike, well, that's the first domino to fall in the chain reaction that leads to sleepiness.
So how in the world does a blood sugar spike translate into you wanting to curl up for a nap? It all comes down to this really amazing biological pathway.
It's like a four-step chain reaction. First, you eat that high GI meal. Your blood sugar skyrockets. In response, your body releases a big surge of insulin to handle all that sugar. Now here's where it gets interesting. Insulin also tells your muscles to start grabbing certain amino acids out of your bloodstream, but it leaves one special one behind: tryptophan. So now, with all its competition out of the way, tryptophan gets a VIP pass straight across the blood-brain barrier. And once it's in your brain, it gets converted into serotonin, and then into melatonin, yep, the very chemicals that make you feel all relaxed and sleepy.
And this brings us to that famous Thanksgiving myth. We always blame the turkey for making us sleepy, right? But the science, it just doesn't back that up. Yeah, turkey has tryptophan, but so does chicken, beef, pretty much all meats. The real culprit on Thanksgiving is the combination. It's the turkey plus all those high-carb, high-GI side dishes. The mashed potatoes, the stuffing, the dinner rolls. They're what cause that massive insulin spike that lets all the tryptophan from the entire meal flood your brain.
To get an even better handle on this, it helps to kind of zoom out and look at the two main families of carbohydrates. Because, not all carbs are created equal.
So, on one side you have simple carbs. Just think of them as sugars. They have a really simple structure, which means your body breaks them down super fast for a quick burst of energy. On the other side, you've got complex carbs, like starches and fiber. They're made of these long, tangled-up chains of molecules, so they take a lot longer for your body to digest, and that leads to that slower, more sustained release of energy we were talking about.
And here's where you find them in the wild. Simple carbs are in the obvious places, like table sugar and soda, but also in things like honey and fruit. Complex carbs, they make up the bulk of foods like whole grains, bread, pasta, potatoes, and beans. And generally speaking, though it's not a perfect rule, those high GI foods tend to be simple carbs or complex carbs that have been really refined, like white bread.
Okay, so we've gone through a bunch of science, but why is any of this actually useful? How does this apply to our day-to-day lives? It matters because carbohydrates are absolutely not the enemy. In fact, they're our body's main source of fuel. Health authorities actually recommend that we get almost half to 2/3 of our daily calories from carbs. So the key isn't to avoid them, it's to understand them. Choosing carbs that are lower on the GI scale, the more complex ones, can really help you manage your energy levels and dodge that afternoon slump, especially when you really need to be on your game.
And that really brings us to the final thought here. Now that you understand this whole pathway from what's on your plate to how your brain feels, you have the power to make smarter choices. So the next time you're putting together a meal before a big meeting or a long drive, think about this science. Ask yourself, is this going to fuel my focus or is this going to send me straight into a food coma? The choice is totally yours.